Okay. All right. So we started recording, and
All right.
some of it is going to get cut out. All right. Good. So you can get close to the.
Okay.
This is the actual thing that we're going to record. And, well, you don't have to use that unless you want to hear my voice. If you want, it's up to you. That's your
Yeah, just try it and see.
Oh, you feel comfortable.
Oh, that's.
And this is mine. I generally stop. Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Mm-mm.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if this is on.
I can't hear anything.
This one's not plugged in. All right. So,
Good thing. Check that out. Okay, no.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Makes sense. All right. So you can hear me. I can hear you. And then all of these are turned all the way. Okay. All right. So we're good. And then I am going to hit record so we can get started. What you looking at? Please, let's focus. Let's focus. All right. So I'm going to pull up the. All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Some Days Today, where we encourage you to live your best life starting today. With me is my co-host, Mac Odina.
hello, everyone.
And a special guest that we have today is LaTonia Cokely.
Hey, y'all.
So, LaTonia, I'm just going to give you a brief background on her, but then I'll let you jump in and then,
Sure.
Tell us more about yourself. But from your site, I see that you're a self-proclaimed lover, creator, and educator.
Absolutely.
You are do you call yourself proprietress or the owner of Ajourn?
Owner, curator, master blender.
Wonderful.
Proprietress.
We
can do that.
Of Adjourn Tea House. And we are excited to have her here today to tell us about her journey and all of the great things that she's doing, from curating teas to being featured in various magazines like Essence and different spaces that have been inspiring to other Black women who are doing great things in the community, but also really just to learn about some of the other activities that she's doing, from educating to consulting, running a business as a Black woman, and really just occupying the creative space and living her best life. So welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, and I'm super blessed to be in a position to tell my testimony and speak about just kind of my journey through grief and healing and starting my own business and just really stepping out there and taking the risk to do something I have never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So just as a little background, I began my journey to entrepreneurship after the passing of my mother about 6 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And 10 years prior to that, almost exactly, I lost my father as well. So both to cancer. And so what was really surreal and just moving for me was life is short. You know, my father was 45, my mother was 50. And I made the decision, for whatever amount of time I have left here, I'm gonna do my thing. Like, I don't have time to waste. And so that transition, so I was a teacher for 10 years in Montgomery County. I taught elementary school and middle school. And so I left elementary school. So I was thinking, all right, if I can just make my day look a little bit different, I have more opportunities to explore what makes me smile, what makes me happy, what lights my world up. And so I transitioned to middle school, which was good. But towards my third year as a middle school teacher, the stress, and I think also being an African-American woman with a power to create space, that led a lot of the pressure in the school to be placed on my shoulders. You know, so every time a student was disruptive or a student was having a hard time, it was kind of something that I had to own. And it was causing me stress. Why did you
feel you had to own? Were they primarily African-American children you were teaching? Is that right?
Absolutely.
And the rest of the teaching staff were predominantly not Black?
Fairly mixed.
Okay.
But I do think there's also not only being a Black teacher, but being a teacher who is committed to understanding and making sure that children are going to be children.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to handle the things that they have to deal with. So we as adults have to be prepared to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, that was starting to cause me a lot of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stress. I was taking it home with me. It wasn't good for my health.
Mm-hmm. And this was middle school.
This was middle school.
Which is the height of hormones, children
Girl.
stepping in,
Girl.
testing the boundaries. Okay.
Yeah, and I think what really surprised me was that middle school teachers loved my team. But a lot, if transition from elementary school to middle school, there's a different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So middle school teachers are like, I'm here to do this. I care about you, but I only have this amount of time. Whereas in elementary school, we are with you all day.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are our children. So it's just a different mindset. So I transitioned.
Mm-hmm. So you transitioned from middle to elementary school.
Elementary to middle school.
To middle school. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So with that transition, you were struggling to really feel comfortable in that space, and you felt a lot of stress, and also started to question how effective you were being in that space. Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
So I was also in a couple leadership positions, so being a team leader. I felt like my energy was like sapped. I started getting migraines, started getting upset stomachs. I mean, every week it was something like, oh, my stomach really hurts and my head hurts. And then I realized it was stress. It was exhaustion.
Was this prior to your father's or your mom's passing? I'm just trying to see.
After.
So it was after both of them had passed. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
So you were starting to pay more attention to
my body,
your
my
emotions, your soul, what mattered to you. Gotcha.
And I think as women, we're often on autopilot. We just keep going. Like, I'm going to be sad for a little while, but I have this to do, and I have a job, and I have kids, and I have a family. But we don't put ourselves in that continuum as often and as intentionally as we should. So I transitioned out of the classroom. I went to work for a really brilliant nonprofit in DC called Center for Inspired Teaching. So I did a lot of coaching and facilitating.
And who were you
workshops.
Coaching?
Teachers,
gotcha.
Teachers, school administrators. Love the work. But I've gotten to a point a couple years afterwards where I'm like, I have space for something else. Like there are things that I know I can do. I just have to give myself the space to figure it out.
So you felt fulfilled professionally. You felt the work was okay, but you still felt creatively something was missing.
Yeah, there's something else.
You wanted to honor that space within you.
Absolutely.
And once again, you're being more intentional. You're paying more attention to yourself, realizing life is short. So you can better tune into what's missing and have a better sense for how to diagnose it and then decide to make a decision.
Absolutely. For me, it was really like making space for that to happen. And so, of course, leaving the classroom in the schoolhouse, I had a lot more time to make and to just dream about what could be. And so it led me back to my youth. We drank a lot of tea growing up. And I can remember being a little kid, and I would take the tea bag and split it open, and it's like mush. Like, what is this? It's out of my tea bag. And so after my mother's passing, I started to play with herbs and put my own tea blends together, and I would have my girlfriends over for little tea parties. And they were like, this is good, first of all. Second of all, your space is dope. Your ideas are dope. Why don't you start a business? So I went for it.
And prior to that, had you ever thought of starting your own business? Because I know a lot of times, or a lot of us in the Black community, that's, we are reared to get jobs.
Yes.
Even our children, as much as we tell them all the time, the goal is for you to start your own business, they still tell us, no, we're trying to get jobs.
Absolutely.
So it's a constant battle. So I just wonder, did you always have that in you to start your own business? Or was there a turning point when you said, no, I could do this?
I will say I have always positioned myself in this world as a creator, whether I was creating lesson plans or, I don't know, creating a home for me and my husband, or, curating a tea party for my girlfriends. I'm a creator, so I own that part of myself. But I never thought that I could monetize my creations. But I will say, after I successfully launched the company last May, and so my sister...
and before you jump, because I want to talk about your process, because I thought how you even got into it, the crowdfunding, all of that is amazing. So let's not dive into it directly, but so your girlfriends, they're tasting your tea and they said, this is amazing. You should start this. And you didn't have any resistance mentally. You just felt like, oh, this makes sense. I could do it. Or what was that thought process to actually like start to own it and welcome that as your next step?
Well, research.
Okay.
So all the time that we spend on social media looking at other people's business, I started to put that into researching. So what is it? First of all, what teas do I like? All right, so how can I make this tea myself and put a little spin on it? Okay, so that's one thing. Okay, well, how do I get an LLC? Who can I talk to about this? That's another thing. So I started a huge Google folder with a ton of research. And I kept notebooks by my bed because as a creator, I'm often the one that's up at 3 a.m. like, ooh, I have ideas. So I kept notebooks and pens, and whenever those ideas came to me, I wrote them down and I spent some time researching. So I replaced a lot of that idle time that I would spend on social media or doing whatever else. And then I put that into researching. So I don't have to get ready when the time is here. And so I would say that process started a few years before. Where I just started dreaming. What could this be like?
So that was part of your evolution. So you felt like you needed to transform, because I feel like I went through a similar transformation, especially because I never thought of myself as a creative. I appreciate creative spaces, but I've never seen myself as a creative. Now I know that we're all creative.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
We really are. And the reason why a lot of us are unhappy, dissatisfied, and really feeling empty is because we're not honoring that space in us. So now for me, in starting my own company and also some days today, I realized that before I could fully feel comfortable in that space, I had to mentally transform into someone who did that. Does that make sense? So it seemed like you've always been a creative. You've always welcomed that, but there was some sort of transformation that still needed to take place. Maybe the research to convince yourself that you could do this, whatever it is, but that was what you spent those 2-3 years doing to transform into what that journey was.
Research, finding money, like what could that look like? How do I put my hands on some money? So I started saving money when I had a job, even if it was $5 or $10 a paycheck. Like I started saving money so that I could afford to at least buy something. I started reaching out to people that were doing the work. So there are other tea companies owned by Black women. I would reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in this. Some were cool. Some were like, oh yeah, I'll tell you. And then some people said, no, you're competition. But the point is, for every 50 people you reach out to, a few are going to say, yes, come on, I'll show you how to do it. So I started doing a lot of that. And then so I think part of teaching, what I loved about teaching was allowing my students to dream, right? So that's a practice. That's not something that you wake up with. And oftentimes, if you grow up I'm a first-generation college student. My family didn't have money. I lost my parents very early. I was 20 when I lost my dad, 30 when I lost my mother. And so I didn't have those resources, but I could dream. And so what I loved about my own teaching practice was making sure that I gave students the opportunity to do that, but you have to practice that. And so a lot of poor folk don't have that opportunity. A lot of people that are raised to just get a job, we're not dreaming about what our lives could be. We're dreaming about the job that you're telling us we should get, you know? And so that's something I did have. And that's something that I really try to push in my own practice now.
What does that look like? Practice dreaming. That's actually really cool concept. And I would love to. We have 3 children. High school, middle school, and elementary school, 14, 13, and 9.
Goodness gracious.
Can't
tell it. Girl. Trying.
But yeah, so the idea of practicing dreaming is something that I've never even thought as a thing to refine. I knew that you needed to do more so you can feel more comfortable creating, because that's also a muscle to exercise. But just the idea of practicing dreaming, I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting concept. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so in some of my consulting work, we also work with teachers to help them see the possibilities of what could be if you allowed these things to happen. So a lot of it stems from putting yourself in a position where you're like, without any limitation, what would you want to see happen? And be very specific, because this also ties into the intentionality behind your work and manifestation. You can't get what you want if you're not clear on what that looks like. And so visualization is big. I'm a visual person, so I sketch. I might paint a picture, or
so you're an artist too?
Something like that.
Nice.
But I might paint or sketch something out, or talk. Call your best girlfriend up and say, I have a dream. I want to tell you about this. If I didn't have any limitation, this is what I want to do. And within that dream, there are going to be pieces that you can absolutely do. So for me, I want to have a huge tea company. I don't necessarily want to be a barista and have a store. I want to have a company where I'm sourcing or providing tea for different businesses and coffee shops or whatever. There are little steps that I can take. So start nipping at those before you go after the big thing.
That's really good. That's actually something that we've incorporated into our consulting practice when we're working with small businesses. Is really just think about where you want to be. What's your end goal for your business? But that's interesting that you've applied it to any vision, anything that you are going for in your life. Just think it through and be able to paint as big of a picture or as accurate of a picture as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me jump in here with a question. So let's imagine, because a couple of things that I notice I do this too when I ask questions. But, so first of all, you said you're a creative, which is great. A lot of people, like Bola said, that don't see themselves as that, and so perhaps they are the workers, and they're not thinking about their dreams. And even if you were to ask them to go through that exercise, you know what I mean? And so they probably would be like, laying down, watching some TV. You know what I'm saying? So,
or not even that. I think a lot of people are scared to dream. That to me, I think is the biggest hindrance, because something comes into your mind and you're like, well, that's just crazy. Who am I, Trump? Am I Trump? Or, you know what I mean? Like, am I the Kennedys? You know what I mean? Like, you just limit your dreams because you haven't, your logical, I don't know as much, your intellectual self steps in to apply reason as to why you shouldn't even be going down this path.
So, the question was,
how do you then overcome that?
So if you take yourself back to 6 years ago when was it 6 years ago that you decided you were going to do this? Yeah. So 6 years ago when you were teaching and before you started to get those pains that you had to make some changes, what would you say to somebody who's at that point, or your husband? How do you advise your husband to sort of begin to dream?
Yeah. So we actually talk about this quite a bit. There are things there are powers that each person has. So suppose you're working as a receptionist at an organization and you're thinking to yourself, like, my dream is really to not do anything. That's okay too. Like, give yourself grace to say, this is what I would like to do. That's perfectly fine. But within the work that you do, there are powers that you have. Maybe you're excellent at organization. That's a business. Maybe you're excellent at graphic designs or memos or captions on social media or photography. Those are businesses. Those are things that you can take. People will pay you for. I have a good friend of mine, one of my best friends, who is fantastic at shopping for plants and putting plants together in spaces. And so she started her own little business. She works in New York, and businesses hire her to come in and just water the plants and curate the space with the plants. It's so simple, but that's a business. And so start thinking about the things that you're proud of. When you come home and fix a meal for your family, how do you feel? What pride do you take in that? And then start to pull those things out. Maybe it's your sense of smell. My sense of smell is really, really good. And that to my detriment sometimes, but it's super good. So I'm able to smell herbs and spices and come up with what I think would smell, what tastes good as a tea. Those little things are powers that we can use.
That's good. So, all right. So so there are some processes. One of them, it looks to me like, okay, if you can't find it, you find what you're good at.
Yes.
So then once you do that, I guess what's the next step? What do you, how do you get yourself to the point where you actually take action if you do see it? So, we just talked about how potentially, you can have that idea come into your mind and you're like, wow, this is too big. How do you overcome those fears and then start to take those steps?
That's a big question. So there are a couple of things that I used. One is my circle. So who's in your circle? So my husband, we're perfect yin and yang. He's a Capricorn. He's got his paper. There are things and structures that he needs to have in place. And also he immigrated here from Jamaica too. So there's a mentality that is very different from me as a Black American from the South. And then also I'm a creative. So I'm like, what to do? It's good to do this, And so it was important for me to curate my friend set. So who am I going to talk to about my ideas? My husband, because he's super practical and he's going to rein me in a little bit. My girlfriends, because they're going to support what I want to do. They're going to come over for my little tea parties when I only have, a couple of ounces to share and we're going to just sit around. They're going to come. They're going to support. And then also those notebooks that research, like just start something. Like the whole idea of someday is today, that's literally what I took with me through the journey. Just start every day. What am I doing?
So on the last episode, we talked about finding your essence. Because once you tap into who you're supposed to be, you just go with the flow, right? But I think we were saying, how do you know that you're down the wrong path, right? And it's when you start to feel stressed out, when your soul is just out of alignment with your day-to-day activity, you just know something is wrong. And as you tune into that more and more, and it could be because you start to realize people dying out here.
Yes.
Life is precious.
Life is precious.
And when that's the case, you start to listen out more. And I think I probably started my journey. A very good friend of mine, two good friends of mine passed away within 6 months of each other. Was it 5 years ago? 4 or 5 years ago? That's when I realized, y'all not going to kill me.
No, that's exactly what I said.
No, let me get real all the way back and focus. And I feel like that's when things became still for me. But go ahead.
Absolutely. So I had a friend of mine whose husband was the principal of an elementary school in Baltimore City. And they had this older teacher there. She'd been teaching there for like 40 years. Last day had a retirement party. And people wait to retire to want to live. My parents never reached retirement. So that's very real for me. This teacher is so excited. And she's had a retirement party. Walked out to her car and she died in a parking lot. And
that is crazy.
I will never forget that story because for me, I'm not waiting.
No.
What am I waiting for? That also led me to travel a lot. My husband and I traveled a lot following my mother's passing. And no, we are not rich. We did research. We did a lot of research. We reached out to a lot of people that are travelers that know how to go on a little bit of money. And we saved, cut back on all the shopping and all the little things that we would waste money on because I wanted to make sure that I saw the world for my parents.
So it's interesting. We also just started traveling and so I'm interested in hearing about the tips. But last year we, it was his 40th birthday. So we did Greece, Italy, and what else? Oh, Portugal.
Oh, yes.
So this year we're doing Africa.
Where are you?
So we're going to start out in Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, Tanzania, and South Africa.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Well, if we can, with all the virus and all the stuff going on, but it is a good time to get tickets.
Yes,
I mean everything is on sale, so we're actually trying to wrap that together now. But the idea of we haven't done research, so I'm pretty sure we're not doing it as what's the word? as price conscious as we could be. So I'd be interested in learning about some of your tips.
And I have a good friend that travels very often, so I'll connect you with her. She knows all the websites.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
We'll get you together.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm like, okay, we can get tickets, but once we get there, we don't have to. We don't have to explore and live. But I think it's interesting though that as you start to sort of step into that space of owning your essence and working through it, that there seems to be a natural sort of connection to wanting to travel and see the world. So that's fascinating. What do you think that is?
It's I term it as freedom. So
gotcha.
That was the beginning of like my healing, my wellness, and just making sure my eyes and my energy were able to touch places that my parents never had the opportunity to touch, but also that I was there and present. So it's not just booking a bunch of tickets to the Caribbean. It's like being very intentional about where we're going to go and what we're going to do. And some of them were pretty big trips too. So, my husband and I eloped. We sure did. They have a lot of like elopement packages and whatnot. And we found this little cabin in the woods between Niagara Falls and Toronto. We drove up there. It's like $500 with a photographer, had a cute little dress.
Wow.
My sister was working on her PhD up there at the time. And so she met us and we did like a road trip.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So we saved a ton of money. And then the next year we did a huge honeymoon in Mauritius.
Wow. I bet that's beautiful.
I haven't been to a place like, and my husband's from Jamaica.
Yeah.
So he knows pretty.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a place more beautiful to me.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So that's your
it needs to be on the list.
Okay. We'll definitely add that to the list.
Let me ask you, I'm sorry, did you want to continue on down the path? Kind of like, go ahead.
Did you have a question about travel? Because I did want to. Okay. So then my next question was then, because I think once you are starting to discover your essence, you start to naturally occupy that space and start to feel that sense of freedom. But I think until you've done that work on yourself, which is, the fear that naturally comes in, and a lot of us are living with fear, is the reason why we don't do a lot of things. So even, and hopefully it doesn't take something tragic like your parents passing away to really jolt you into reality. But I just wonder for most people who are not living by some days today or who haven't experienced tragedy, how do you allow yourself, once you realize, and I think most people realize this ain't it, but they still continue to do it. How do you sort of allow yourself to step out of that space and start to occupy finding something else, knowing the fear is going to come in? Like, did you, you're a creative, so maybe you didn't have to work through as much of that.
I am scared every day.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about that then.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know for me, it's a process. And every day I got to defeat myself. Like, I got to take myself and my ego, the negative talk, take it down.
Every single day.
Okay. So that's good to know that you also have a similar, so how do you tackle that?
I think for me, my sister, I have a younger sister, and she always talks about just sitting in it. Sit in it. Sit in the fear. I worry. After my mother passed away, I felt like my voice just always quivered. Like I didn't feel the same strength I had before when she was living. And I still feel that way. Even when we opened the podcast, I felt like my voice was starting to quiver. But you didn't hear good. But what I don't do is allow that to stop me. I'm a facilitator, so I'm constantly in front of groups of teachers. I get nervous and I tell them, hey, I'm a little nervous, work with me, but I still do it. And so I think that's the key. I think we look at a lot of famous people. We look at people that we find to be successful, and we think they're not afraid. Yeah, they're scared as hell. It's just they do it.
That's all. I think that's the big piece. Like, I've been talking to my family members. Like, my sister, she wants to be a writer, but she's, I would say, almost deathly afraid of putting anything out. And I've been like communicating with her, like, you just got to do it. And that's the that's the message I think people need to hear. It's not that you're not going to have fear. You got to live with the fear and stay with it. I want to ask, what books do you read? Because it seems like, so there's one question I want to ask you. I have the other one that I also want to ask you, but what books do you read?
Oh, that's so interesting. So I read, I'm really into learning about different religions. So I read a lot about Buddhism and just loving kindness. So Pema Chodron has a lot of books on like how to be, how to settle yourself in uncertain times. And so I read a lot about that. I think Brene Brown is brilliant. So I read a lot of her books. Also, I like to listen to us. So stories about us by authors that look like me. So I read, that whether it's going back through, I've spent a lot of time with Maya Angelou and just her work, especially after my mother passed. She does a lot of work, or she did a lot of work talking about love and that being liberating for families that, especially going through difficult times and that. I don't know. She always makes me feel like I can do this. Like if you really go back and listen to or read, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, like she was a teenage mom. She was a prostitute. She owned a brothel. Like Maya Angelou did a lot of stuff, and she made it and was poet laureate. And I mean, so that tells me that like, regardless of my story, I can do this,
right.
And someone wants to read it. To your sister, somebody's going to read it. The billions of people. I was listening to it might have been The Read on another podcast on The Read, and they were talking about Ryan Leslie, who he wasn't this like super R&B singer. I don't even think he's singing that well, but he had a couple bangers. But what he did, he went independent, and he sold like 250,000 copies. Because he was independent, he took that money. Yes, versus going to a big label. And so little stories like that keep me going.
That's awesome. And yeah, you did also mention, so it doesn't necessarily have to be books too. And the reason I asked is because, a lot of the things, it seems like it surprises me about how, depending on when you get into that space, how the mindset and the ideas are so very similar.
Yes.
And like, it surprises me because it's like, okay, are we reading the same kind of things? Like, are we listening to the same things? Or is it just that universal truth is just, it's just the truth and people are finding it out. And so I remember one of the episodes that we did, I talked about how, I got into Instagram, and a lot of the followers that I had are, putting out that positive stuff, like that kind of thing. And so
same here.
And I don't know if that was always the case with Instagram or not, but it just seems like this is something that's growing, and more people are getting into it or starting to find out the truth. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Is that something that you find too? Do you agree with that? And and what do we do, I guess, to spread that a little bit more?
I think for me, I make sure that whatever I receive is worthy of my time and my energy. And I do realize that I'm in a place of, like I'm in a blessed place to say no, right? I am not rich, so I want to make sure the podcast knows this. But I am in a place to say, I am not going to engage with this because it doesn't serve me. And I think a lot of people are making that decision. Like, I'm going to stop following this person if what's coming to me isn't good. I think part of my mission, so, Adjourn Tea House, the part of it is tea. The bulk of what I'm doing is trying to infuse a practice, the practice of adjourning, which literally adjourn means to pause. The meeting is adjourned. We're going to come back to it at another time. And so what I want to do for myself and what I want to encourage other people to do is be intentional about the messages that are around you. I feel like a lot of people are making that switch, and then spread what you think is good too. What's going to feed you too.
So one of the books that I think really inspired my journey and Mac's journey now is Eckhart Tolle. I feel like we talked about him. What is it? A New Earth.
Yeah,
Awaken
I haven't read it
your.
yet, but it's on my list.
It's so good.
Is it?
I would tell everybody it would literally transform your life, but you've already. I feel like you're in the space, so you just be reminded, like,
I'm ready. It's on the list.
Makes sense. But no, it's such a good book. And what he was saying is that, kind of like Mac was alluding to, we are all sort of waking up from this slumber. kind of like the Matrix,
Mm-hmm.
you know, everybody's plugged in. Now
Yes.
you just realize, so we're waking up from this slumber, and who knows, maybe, you know, every couple of centuries, you know, this is what happens, and then something happens to sort of, you know, make people fall asleep again. Who knows? But I do think we're in this period of awakening, and it could be social media, because news spreads so rapidly that's allowing people to get that information. And, you know, when you see truth, you can't deny truth.
No.
You know, especially when your mind is, even if it's just a bit ajar and ready to accept it. Once you, it's like seeing light. Once you see it, it spreads, and you can't deny it.
I agree.
So I feel like that's sort of what's happening. And I would agree. And I think it's our job. So you know, when a lot of people say, I don't know what my purpose is, what I'm supposed to do, and what I'm realizing is our job as human beings is really just to inspire other human beings.
Yes.
Which then goes to what you would. So when I see people like Oprah, or, you know, I always say Beyonce, because she really is my inspiration. But, you know, you see, you know, people like Maya Angelou, Beyonce, and all of that, and you're just like, yeah, if you're doing it, that's just a testament for what we as a human race are capable of.
Yes.
And I can then dream just as big, and if they could do it, the universe will somehow figure out a way to support me in getting to the path that I want to get to.
Absolutely.
So it's just,
and you have to trust.
Yes, you got to trust faith.
And I also think, I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert, whoever wrote Eat, Pray, Love. So she did a speech. She was talking about her husband, the guy she met in Eat, Pray, Love, got married to, about the fact that so she did the speech in Australia, and it was all about how you need to find your passion, and you need to, you know, be passionate about something. And she was like, when she left the speech, she got a note from someone. You remember that song? Yeah. On Oprah Super Soul?
You must know Oprah Super Soul.
Yes. So just in case your listeners haven't heard it. So she gets the message back from a listener or someone that attended the speech, and was like, that was the worst thing for me to hear, because I don't have a passion. And so then she started to make a case against having a passion. What I love about that is it decenters this one thing that we all need to be good at, right? You don't have to be good at just one thing. You can dabble in a bunch of different things until you find what you want to focus on, right? So right now, I'm really focused on tea, right? But I'm multi-passionate. I know how to sew. I can paint pictures. I mean, I can do a lot of different things. And so I think it's important for people that are stuck and like, I don't know what my calling is. You don't have to have a thing yet.
Do it all.
Just do it all.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, let me follow, because one of the issues that I have, I would say, is making decisions. And I think that's part of what people deal with. Like when you say do it all, or I don't know what to do. Like I know that this was the case for me. Probably still is to a large extent, but I know that this is also the case for a lot of people too, where they don't want to spend time. We were talking to one of our friends. They don't want to spend time with something that is not necessarily what they're going to end up doing. It's like, this is inefficient. I'm wasting my energy. And so like they struggle with making a decision on whether to do this or not. And so how do you make decisions? And I want to also say before I let you answer, I think decision making is probably like the most energy consuming thing. Oh my gosh. This is precisely why people want a job. They want somebody to tell them what they do. This is why they follow people blindly. If somebody is telling you, this is why they follow religion blindly. Tell me what to do and I'm good. Like if you always have to figure out, okay, on this one, what am I going to do? It's very exhausting. So how do you make your decisions?
That's a good question. So I will say, I spent 10 years as the sole decision maker for about 30 young people. So I do have a lot of practice in just knowing if something isn't perfect, this is still what I'm going to do. So I think you have to be okay decentering your ego. It may not turn out to be perfect. People will not respond the way you want. Everyone isn't going to respond the way you want it to, but you commit to doing something for you. Also, if you ask my husband about choosing dinner, he's going to tell you I can't make a decision. And there are certain things that I do struggle with making a decision. But the point that I make to myself is that you can change your mind. So today, I love black tea. I want to make black tea. I want to sell this black tea. Next week, I might not like it. Okay, move on.
What just happened? Do you see this?
Yeah, that was weird. It scared me.
Yeah,
Did it unplug?
I don't think so. Hold on.
I don't think I
must
touched
have,
anything.
though. I don't think it did.
Okay, good. Because I break stuff.
That is the
That's
weirdest.
scary.
I know. I mean, we all.
I was like, oh my God.
I didn't even see anything happen.
No, because you don't have the stuff on you. You gotta
I don't
talk
think
to
you
her.
moved. Yeah.
No,
I think we all see here.
that is so weird. And this is still recording.
Oh, okay.
All right, so, but it definitely went off. So we got to track.
Yeah, let's go
down
talk
the,
to her.
Before we do that, so this is going to be connected to something.
Let me just let you know, there's always technical difficulties every time we do it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I think that's a part of the process.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, expecting.
I'm not in any type of rush, so it's all good.
All right, let me go ask her. And she probably doesn't know because she's not all that technical either. But you could try to
That is weird.
figure it out.
But it
while-
has to be connected to something, and I don't see where.
Oh, this is literally just
I was about to say, is it battery powered or something?
Oh, maybe. No, but it's plugged in, no?
Yeah,
You think it's battery?
Very good.
Is it?
I
don't know.
think, well, it is definitely battery powered.
Okay.
So the question is, did this
Maybe the
thing run
batteries are
out?
dead. But
That
should
is
it be?
nuts.
Because it looks like it has some. It's not connected to an outlet though.
No, it hasn't been.
Hmm.
Ugh.
That's weird.
What is up? Let me see if I got. Yeah, no, it's not connected. That is weird. Okay.
Oh, that's weird.
We need new
I'm
batteries.
Cool. They're gonna have to get them.
Wow. Well, this is great. You sure you haven't done this before?
No. No,
She's like,
man.
yeah, it's battery powered. Their batteries right here.
Uh,
I swear to God. You just change the batteries.
Somebody should have told
What
us.
are we doing? That's what I'm saying. Like, why won't they
beforehand.
change the batteries before?
Where are the batteries?
It's right here.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
it's plugged in.
That's weird.
So that's why we gotta do our own thing. We can go and see.
Here we go.
Huh?
That's weird. Yeah. Why isn't there an adapter? It should be plugged in. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sure is.
Because imagine, even if you have this at home, like the battery's gonna die. That's a lot. Mm-mm.
Or they should have some kind of like something that
Or
tells
like
you it's about to run out.
Exactly. Because I didn't see a light.
I didn't see nothing. All I know is they just went dark.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy. Let me pause this while.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, you can start your intro over, and that way we can,
Sure.
if we need to, we can just.
So I think the key to any type of decision making is knowing that it's a 50-50. Either it's going to be a good decision or it's going to be a bad decision. Sometimes the decisions are bad. That's okay.
Because you learn from it.
Yes.
Right? And it's
Yes.
not the end of the world.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and sometimes the decisions are super good. For example, I had the opportunity. Have you seen Renee Blewett's film?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's the one I made the girls watch. I know he's looking like, what is that?
she did that.
She did that. The one about 5 entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
Black-owned women who were doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Which is
super good.
amazing. Yeah.
She's super cool. So she invited me to participate in the Black Women in Hollywood gift bag. So she curates that every year. So I had to send 500 tins of tea for free because this.
Did you know her? How'd you get this invitation?
So how to get the invitation? I started reaching out to people. There was this woman. She goes by the Afro Minimalist on social media.
I know her. Well, I don't. I damn near stalk her.
I've
I've asked her to come on my podcast, and she promptly ignored me. So maybe
she's been traveling.
I know, because I was all up in
Yes.
her Instagram. I know she's been traveling because I'm all up.
She is big.
Right, and she's a author. She writes
Yes.
children. I mean, yeah.
Yes.
Please let her know.
I will let her know.
I love her.
Yeah,
Okay.
so on a whim, in September, I reached out to a bunch of people that I loved on social media. I was like, look, I have this bomb tea. I want to send you some. Would you be open to that? she responded.
Wow.
But I caught her in a lull. So I think that's the point, that you have to be okay with some people they're not going to respond.
Gotcha.
I caught her in a lull where she was transitioning between some work and becoming this prolific writer for children's books. And we ended up meeting up for lunch and sharing the tea, and she's good friends with Renee.
Gotcha.
And so literally, and that's how networking happens. So,
that's how the universe works.
Yeah, you have to reach out. So in that moment, I'm gonna call Renee right now. I'll call Renee and say, I have a girl, a Black woman who has tea. She should be at your bazaar. So I went to this bazaar in December for all Black women brands. And that's how I met Renee. And so after the bazaar, I did pretty well there. She reached out and asked me if I could contribute to this gift bag. But here's the thing about decision making. It's a 50-50, right? So I'm sending thousands of dollars of products. I'm a small business. I don't have thousands of dollars. You know, and so I'm leaning on my support group. Sending thousands of dollars worth of tea, getting it in the hands of the likes of Ava DuVernay and all the fancy Black folks.
Wow.
With the hope that Oprah's gonna call me and say, this is on my favorite things list,
and
right?
You know she will. Did you put that on your vision board?
Yes, honey.
Okay, good. It's just a matter of time. You know she will.
Yeah, but the thing about decision making is it might not happen.
No, it will.
You know, and but for me, like, I needed to make sure I grounded myself in, I'm doing this, I'm planting a seed. If it turns out to be this big thing, cool. If it doesn't immediately, that's okay too. You know, I mean, and I think, you know, that's when we will be more comfortable as a people, when, you know, we don't have to be right all the time.
So I want us to, because I know we've sort of gone all over the place. We haven't jumped into how you got your company started.
Oh yeah.
But I do like the term you use, because we use the same term, which is your practice.
Yes.
And I think life in general is practice.
All of it is practice.
I think if you take that same approach to decision making, how you live every day, how you show up, you don't have to be perfect.
No.
You are getting up every day and you're working on your craft, and that's your practice. The mere fact that you are working on your practice is success.
Yes.
And that should be good enough, right?
Yes.
So so I really kind of caught that, and I thought that's amazing.
Absolutely. And I'm in a equity fellowship in DC. This was a part of my education work. And one of the things we talk about is decentering perfectionism. That is a capitalistic approach to living. The idea that everything has to be perfect, and it doesn't. And you have the power to say, whoops, I made a mistake, and I'm moving on. I'm not going to sit here and be worried about it.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us then how you went from writing your vision in the books, doing research, to then deciding, I'm ready. What was that process of being ready? And what did that mean? Did you leave your job? Like, how did you then get started?
So I will say this is where my social, like my friendship circle comes in. So I was more afraid than some of my friends were. They had already committed to investing in what I was doing, because we support one another, whatever we do, right? So
Can I told be a part of this.
Yes,
we need some support.
We're friends.
Because that's also a key part of it, is you got to surround yourself with like-minded people. And not have to feel like you got to explain yourself every time.
Oh my God! So, people that just cheer you on,
cheering you on.
I think the process of losing my parents, that's when I really found out who was there. Like, people want to love on you. People love to be around you. People also love to soak your energy. But there are only a few that are going to be riders, right? So who's willing to ride this way with me? And I'm blessed. I have like 5-6 people that I know. I can say, look, girl, I need some more peppermint. Can you send me $20? And it's without a question. And so I leaned on them.
So that's a key part, is really curating your friend group or your support network.
Absolutely.
That may be, because that's what I know you're a process person. He's a process. So you're thinking about what's the process of stepping into your essence. You got to then assess the people who are going to be
who's
your
around
cheerleaders. Gotcha.
You can't see who you are if you're not in a space where others are allowing you to be who you are, where you can try to be who you are unapologetically, where you can make mistakes without judgment, where people are giving you grace. So you have to make sure that you're in a space to practice that too, because again, that's a practice. A lot of us, we aren't ourselves.
And Oprah says that if you find yourself contorting yourself in all sorts of ways, that's not the space for you.
No.
Go the path of least resistance. We think we got to work hard. That's actually that's a negative. Is it? Yeah. That's
that instinct book that you.
Oh, that's a good one. We'll give you
I've heard the
it's so
you know, he's like I forget exactly. It's something about being exhausted.
You're exhausted, just trying to be somebody you're not. If you find yourself, go be yourself. Find that space that you can fully occupy being yourself. Yeah, that's great.
And that's where you put the work. You don't have to put the work. The footwork doesn't have to go into having this thing on the shelf right now. The work needs to be working on you and cultivating a space and fostering friendships that are going to bring you the love and the encouragement that you need. And also making sure you don't have to contort yourself. I was about 24 and I got my certificate to be a principal. So I passed this huge test. I'm like, I'm going to be a principal. And then I watched all the Black women who were principals in Montgomery County, who I love, but also consistently contort themselves. And I just was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Not for a system. You know, I can't be who I want to be for children, then I'm not going to do it. And so I would say along the way, there are certain things where I said no to, and there's a lot of that I said yes to that hurt, you know, and I had to figure it out. So that was the beginning process for me.
So you decided you think you're ready, leaned on your friendship group.
Told them, and I was like, I need y'all to hold me, put my feet to the flame, ask me every week when we talk. A lot of my girlfriends don't even live near me, so we get on Zoom. Ask me how my business is going, ask me about my business plan, ask me questions, like keep me engaged because I'm going to try to run away from this.
So you knew that about yourself and felt comfortable putting that out there, which is another part of the practice, right? So you can, once you realize it's not about perfection, you can let people know where you are at the moment, knowing that you're going to continue to improve to be better. Right. So so you felt comfortable sharing that.
Absolutely.
Because I think a lot of people, once again, the reason why people don't start businesses or try new ideas is they don't want to be judged by their network, particularly when they've decided to give up. Right. So they'll rather just not even share it, knowing that the judgment will come and they're not ready to handle it. So.
Absolutely. And then for Christmas, my husband bought the LLC. It's only a few $100s. Like I think there's certain things that are extremely expensive when it comes to starting a business, but some things aren't that expensive. We did not do Christmas. We did not do like huge holiday stuff. We decided to like focus our energy and our money into something that would bring us joy down the road. And so he bought the LLC for me. I had a company under a different name. It turns out that there's another company with a similar name in Maryland who does coffee. And so I got cease and desist letter after cease. Yes.
All right.
They hunt me down. I hadn't even sold a product.
What?
They sure did.
But you know what? That's that what's that stuff that when you have a light shining,
Halo?
Yep.
That's that halo.
Girl, they were
people saw it a mile away. They say, you know what, we already know what she's about to do. Wow.
Yes. And so I had to completely rebrand a business that I hadn't even sold one item yet.
But because I'm always looking for confirmation along the way that I'm on the right path. Because for me, that would have been like, you know what, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Yes. If people felt so threatened by it and you haven't even sold a product.
I hadn't sold.
So that probably bolstered you.
Yeah. I mean, I cried about it. I was devastated. And I'm not cut out to go to jail. It's not for me.
Jail. Listen, for me, I'd be like, what you gonna get? Sue me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's not for me. I was like, okay. This is the law. This is where the lawyers come out. And so I cried about it, and then I was like, "Get up, girl! Yeah, come up with something new." Yeah. Because that said to me that there is a market. Yes. This company so the company was Ceremony Bespoke Tea Company, and the company that was sending me the letters is Ceremony Roasters. It's a coffee company up here.
Wait. Your name was Ceremony Tea.
Ceremony Bespoke Tea Company,
and then theirs was Ceremony
Coffee or Ceremony Roasters.
We would go to court.
But you know what? That wasn't the name wasn't meant for her.
I took 2 things from it, right? One is there's a sign that I'm on to something.
Yes.
That another company, their lawyer saw my name pop up and was like, we don't want any competition. Okay, so that's one thing. But two, bend, don't break. So flex with it. I was like, okay, we're going to do this. I'm going to come up with a new logo. I want to come up with a new name. We did extensive research. Make sure no one else has Ajourn anything near us. And I just had fun with it. Because at that point, I don't even think I did the Kickstarter just yet. But at that point, I was still playing around. I was still building my ideas. I still had a job, so I was still working, but I was putting a lot of emphasis on the preparation so that when I did get the money, I was ready to go.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So then how did you then decide when it was time to take the next step? And was the next step the Kickstarter or were you, okay.
So next step was the Kickstarter. So let's say that was May, June of 2018, where I had this whole cease and desist thing and mental breakdown / rebrand.
And your girlfriend's picked you back up.
Picked me up, get up, girl, we're doing this. Get to December, and I decided to go ahead and go with the Kickstarter. I chose a budget that was super low, but I made sure, in the grand scheme of things, I probably could have done a lot higher, but I wanted to make sure that I could at least be successful. And with Kickstarters, if you don't raise all of it, you get nothing. And so, and then
and how long do you have to raise the money?
It depends on how long you put. I did 30 days.
30 days, okay. And how much were you trying to raise?
Just 3,000.
3,000,
I got like
30 days.
3,700.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I made sure that I put like a lot, because when you don't have product, you need to make sure that your brand it speaks for itself. So I put a lot of work into creating like little promo videos that were not perfect, super grainy. My sister happens to be a producer, so she makes beats, and so I had her, we worked together to put some stuff together. And then I did all that writing and all that research, all the stuff, all the ideas that I spent the last few years working on, all of that went into my Kickstarter campaign.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So how did you decide to do crowdfunding anyways? Because I don't think that's a natural, I wouldn't even have thought about it. I mean, do people naturally?
I remember Kickstarter being a huge thing back, maybe 6 years ago. It kind of fell out of my mind, but I was like, when you brought it back up, I was like, yeah, that is a way to fund your thing. I completely forgot about it.
And so you would recommend it?
Yeah. So Kickstarter is really, really successful for people that already have businesses. I don't think people use it to start businesses, but I needed to have a trusted place for people that I knew would support my ideas to go and see what I had to offer. Like, I wanted you all, if you were participating in my Kickstarter, to be like, oh, she's serious. So I did that instead of like a GoFundMe or something. Also, people are willing to help.
What's the difference? I thought it was the same.
Kickstarter, no, so GoFundMe, Kickstarter, it has to be a business. It's like very serious. You have certain guidelines you have to meet. You can't just up and wake up and be like, I want to do a Kickstarter. You have to put some work into it. And so I wanted people to take me seriously. I also wanted, people go back and forth with my Kickstarter all the time. So I wanted people to see that I was serious about what I was doing, and I'm going to engage you in multiple ways in my business. And then there are a lot of different funding sources out there. There are a lot of crowdfunding opportunities for people who are low income. There are angel investors. I haven't had the opportunity to receive any of that. I'm still hoping from the Essence thing. You know, Oprah says, I'm going to give you a cool million. She will. Oprah, you listening?
Probably 5, more like 5.
Yes, manifestation. So there are opportunities out there, but for me, I knew I needed the capital to just get me off my butt. I knew that if I think there were like 60 or 70 people that bought into my Kickstarter, that I had product to get to them. So there were no
so
games.
It's an exchange. You donate money and then they get something back.
Yeah, so that's the other key to Kickstarter. So you have different tiers of gifts. So I had like 5 or 6 tiers. The highest being, you donate $150, you get a tea party. You donate $15, I send you a sample of tea, and then everything in between. And so I had that, for me, cemented the fact that I had a business. I had people that were waiting that had already paid for their product. So I had to work.
That's an amazing way to get started, actually, because a lot of people are limited by access to capital. And we work with small businesses, and people talk about how I don't even have any money to get started. But Kickstarter is actually a great resource because you have a built-in audience before you've even actually gotten started, you can then use other people's money to basically launch your business. So at that point, it really is about how you're packaging and presenting and positioning yourself.
And that's where that research and that dreaming comes into play. So all of that work you've done behind the scenes, just dreaming up this idea, you then put that into your Kickstarter. So people see the process. You know, and be very transparent about the process too.
So you did the Kickstarter, obviously got more than what you requested. So were you surprised by that, or just excited knowing?
I don't know. Yeah, I actually, Bola, I'm surprised every step along the way. I'm constantly in awe, like, oh my gosh, this is happening.
You know, before you continue, what I've realized about that is we've been dreaming too small.
Yes.
Right? Like when you finally put yourself out there and then stuff starts, you're just like, wait a minute, I could have done even more.
My husband says that all the time. He's like, you sell yourself so short. But I also think that's a part of growing into the practice of dreaming. Like, you in the beginning, yes, I do. You know, to be transparent, I have a bunch of have a white male friend of mine who I love dearly. He was like, you know, LaTonia, as a white man, I never even think I can't do.
Yes.
And he was like, but I see people of color, specifically Black women, being like, I don't know. Or he was like, I go into a job interview, I may have never done the job, and I go in there and I'm going to act like I did, but we don't. We think everything has to be perfect before we do it, and it just doesn't.
I actually read a quote, and I'm not going to get it right, that says it just that. They said, you know, white people are surprised when it doesn't work out.
Yes.
Because you go in thinking, well, of course. Black people or people of color are surprised if anything works out. So that's the difference.
That's why we got Trump.
Like,
when I ain't got a job.
What? So, but that mindset that makes a world of difference. In terms of how you're dreaming, what you're dreaming, the spaces you walking in, the people you surround yourself.
What you're inject, what I like to call consuming, everything that you're consuming, your social media. Are you sitting on your social media looking at women that don't look like you, that aren't doing the things that you're trying to do, that are wearing clothes you can't afford? Or are you following people that are inspiring you to take a risk?
Right.
You know, and have a balance of both.
And even if people are inspiring you to, even if you're inspired by what people who look at you are doing, how are you interpreting that?
Yes.
Are you thinking, oh God, I could never do that? Look at, you know what I mean? Or are you using that as inspiration to propel you? But that's great. So the Kickstarter, you were surprised, but ready to get started.
And what it taught me was, because going back to reaching out to the Afro minimalist, what it taught me is that you need to have something that you can give to, right? So these people that you look up to, or the people that you want to buy your products, they aren't going to purchase or participate or engage with you if you're not giving them something to. Like, we can't let you suck everything out of us.
Because everybody wants, when you're inspiring, everybody wants a piece of you. That's great that you understood that. Because I think that's a recent understanding that I'm starting to get. So you just naturally knew that there's got to be a reason for them to engage you in that way. So you've got to be ready to give something in return. Nothing is free.
Nothing is free. So you need to be able to give something back. And so from the Kickstarter, so one of the things that I've had trouble navigating is like tea in a lot of states. You don't need a commercial kitchen to put teas together. But in Maryland and DC, you do. And so I became a member of a business incubator in DC, which was not a good decision. It was not. Mess hall? Beautiful incubator, but it wasn't good for what I was doing because it was so expensive. I didn't have mama, daddy, you know, with a little money on the side, or have a huge amount of capital helping me, you know, sustain my membership to that space, and then also continue what I'm doing. So that's where I started to reach out, finding other people who have commercial kitchen spaces that all I need is a counter. I need a counter. I'm gonna bring my bowl and my tea. I don't need much. And so being super transparent about the things that you need and reaching out to as many people as possible. You know, and from that, it is going to dwindle down. You reach out to 100, you might hear back from 10. And then work from there.
So so you were in that contract for how long before you decided it wasn't going to work?
6 months.
6 months.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you started reaching out to people to get into a different space.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
In those 6 months, what happened? Had you launched the product by that time, or?
I launched the product May 9th, which was my mother's birthday, my parents' anniversary. So launched the product, was so super sweet. So launched it May 9th, 2019. I was able to have enough blended where I didn't have to blend for a while. So that came with the preparation again. Like, I knew exactly what I was going to market first. I had 2 blends that I was starting with. Don't start too big. Mm-hmm. If you have one good product, start with that one good product until you're able to include more. And I scaled up from there. Mm-hmm.
That's great. And then, so what's happened since? I mean, it sounds like you said, it seems like you're doing amazingly well. So what are some of the milestones that's happened since, and what's been your biggest surprise?
Biggest surprise. Well, I think, so May, June, I had all the orders. Everybody's, popping up, but I'm still a super small business. Mm-hmm. And so June and July was a little tough. I left my position at Inspired Teaching. I actually ended up getting another job out in this area, actually, that I hated.
So wait, so you, so when
I
you
didn't trust myself.
Oh, gotcha. So you left the job with the intention of getting another job, not to go full time.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I didn't trust myself. I still didn't trust myself. And so I got another job working in educational equity. It was not aligned with the type of people and the type of energy that I need around me. So in a month, I took the job. I resigned.
Yeah, like that's not it.
Nope, that's not it. And honestly, I think there are a couple of things that surprised me most along the way. So I still, it wasn't until maybe a month or 2 ago where I was like, I am an entrepreneur, because I still did not see that. So I spent from August to December still applying for jobs, still doing my business, still doing pop-ups here and there. Wasn't making as much as I wanted to, but I didn't.
Is your husband working? Did he keep his? Yes. Okay, gotcha.
But like I said, we're not wealthy.
Yeah.
And so, but just having faith, I cut back a lot, and I put a lot of energy again into that planning and building. So if 1 month I wasn't bringing in the income that I wanted, I was ready for when the check dropped. You can't just be like, oh man, this is failing, and then stop everything. Keep going.
Yeah.
So I had one super good event, made a lot of money. That bolstered me releasing 3 new blends. Those blends are what really are pushing my brand out there. Which led me to reach out to the Afro Minimalist, who connected me to Renee Blewett, who invited me to the event in Brooklyn.
And had you know about she did that, her movie? So you had no idea. Okay. Because Renee Blewett is also another one that I've been stalking for some time. So her movie actually came out a while ago. It's been on Amazon, released in different. This recent Netflix boom is like, where y'all been?
I had no idea.
You had no idea. Yeah.
No, because again, I wasn't thinking. When we talked earlier about fear, this is what I'm talking about. It wasn't in my purview. This to me was still, I'm an educator, I'm a facilitator. This is something that I'm dabbling in. That changed somewhere between December and January, where I had the invitation to New York. It went really well.
So you got introduced to this person, and you didn't even realize who she was.
No.
So were you shocked when you got to New York? Like, what was that experience?
It was. So it was so shocking. So first of all, it's fabulous. It's in Brooklyn, and I mean everything it was just so New Yorky. I'm not from New York, so it was so New Yorky, and the women coming in were fabulous. I mean, Lisa Price from Carol's Daughter was there. All like tons of people that do a ton of work in Essence. I have a good friend of mine who actually was the one that featured me in Essence, but she was the global beauty editor for Essence.
Gotcha.
And she was there. So these women are bringing their friends and introducing Renee, what she does extremely well. She like uplifts the brands, and I think she calls herself a brand whisperer, and lets people know that these things are popping, that Black women are doing. We are doing it. And so for me, there was one moment where there was a woman that came to my table and was like, I don't know what you're selling, but your packaging is so good. And
I was going to tell you that. It's amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that
you
is
created
me.
that?
Yes, in
Nice.
Google Draw.
Oh.
In Google Spreadsheet, in Google Docs. This is what I'm saying. You don't have to have Photoshop. You don't have to stop thinking that it needs to be up here. Take little steps. At some point, I am not going to do that myself. But right now, that's what I have. You know, and that's when I realized, I was like, oh, so they're not even buying it because the tea is excellent. They're buying it because it looks good, because I mastered the brand aesthetic. That
you poured your passion into it. And people, that's what it means to inspire, right? Like through your packaging, through how you show up, through the words. It's not just what you say. It's the whole aura. And when you are truly walking in that essence, you can walk into a room, not say nothing, and inspire a whole bunch of people. And that's what your packaging is doing, because it soaked that energy from you.
And I also have my best friend with me. So your circle matters. She knows how to support me when I'm nervous. She was literally like, girl, we're good. Rubbing my back. Like, I'm terrified. I don't know how to do this. Like, I'm reminding myself, you've never done this before. Are you sure? Look at these women. They're fabulous. Look at the clothes. Look at this. And that was scary for me. Because I'm a small business owner. I'm an educator. I'm also like very chill. Like that's not exactly my crowd. But my girl was there. And that's she wants to see me succeed too. So we did it together. And
what's great about that is, I don't know what space your friend kind of walks in, but she doesn't see your success as a threat.
Oh no.
That's amazing.
We're in this together. I also know that she knows that should this thing like boom, she's there. So these aren't people that I'm just using. These are people that are riding the wave for me. I met her when I was 15. This was back when my dad was first diagnosed with cancer. She's been there throughout the entire journey for me. But also we support one another. You know, that I've been there for her. And so she also knows she gets something out of this too. This is practice for her. She wants to start a podcast one day. She wants to, like, she has things she wants to do. So we're supporting each other along the way.
That's great.
Shift to that. I've been wanting to ask that question.
Sure.
How do you cultivate such friendships? How do you, is it something about your personality, or is there something that you do you think, to have that kind of thing, that kind of friendship to build? Because I would say that having one that rides like that is really special, but having 5 that you can count on, that's pretty dope. So how do you think that is something that you do or that people do to have that, or is that something just about you?
I will tell you what I do. I'm intentional about my relationships. I don't give my time to too many people. I have a list of people I give my time to. And unfortunately, there have been times where I had more to give, and then there have been times where I had significantly less. And I've been okay with that. So that's a part of my process. But 2, once I'm in it, I'm in it. You know, my relationships aren't transactional. And also, you get and you give. So I don't enter any type of relationship like, I'm going to give you this tea and you're going to give me this. But I'm going to give of myself. I need to see you do the same thing. And if you can, then so relationships end. It's nothing wrong with moving on, but give as much as you can of yourself. And also make sure the space is like authentic, you know? So I am like what you see right here is who I am. I don't go into spaces and not be myself. That includes my friendships too. I think I do have an ability to cultivate like warmth within people. So I pull a lot out of people, but I have to say, like, my friends are the ones that pull that out of me. And so I also search for and welcome in friends who are smart, who are eager to learn too. My friends are learners. We're all reading books. Like, it's not just me. I'm not coming to them and being like, girl, let me tell you, I read this book and no, we're all doing it. And in different ways. I have a friend that's like super religious and she's a singer. She does her own thing. I don't necessarily go to church, but I'm invested in growing my spiritual space. That's me. I have a woman in my friendship group who is my traveler, who is my like guru in a lot of different spaces, I draw on that energy. So we all bring different things to the space.
And are you all friends with each other, or are these?
No.
Okay.
Some of us are, but no, we're not always in the same space at the same time, mentally or physically.
Right. What I was going to say, because one question I have for you here is, what are some of the casualties that you've noticed throughout this process? And I think you mentioned some friendships end, and it's okay, or not. Some relationships sometimes have served their purpose, and it's time for you to now move to the another person, or start to occupy different spaces and energies. And it sounds like that's what that's part of it. So have you transitioned from other relationships throughout this process? Okay, so those are some of the, not casualties, but some of the things that you left behind.
We're just not aligned in the same space anymore.
And that's okay.
We were,
right.
now we're not.
Right.
And I think so for me, it's been kind of tough. I'm in a sorority, and so
I saw that. Delta. I'm not, but
so some of my sorors, like, we pledged together, we grew up together, and I've had to be like, I'm in a different space. That's different. And it hasn't been easy. But also, there's no love lost. Like, sometimes it is, I guess. But for me, if I see you. I still love you. But right now, on this journey that I'm on, that energy cannot be included. It's not going to be what I carry forward.
Right. So that's another good takeaway for people is you can't propel yourself forward when you dragging old baggage along with you.
Exactly.
You're going to have to assess what needs to be left behind so that you can be free to take off.
Yes.
Right. And you got to be as light as possible if you're going to take off.
And I think, Bola, for me, what I had to acknowledge is that grief, that's a long process. So me losing my parents, that's not going anywhere for some time. So that means that other stuff has to go. What is it going to be? For me, it was a job that didn't serve me. There were certain friendships that didn't serve me. There was a mindset that I had to change. So inundating myself with books and I meditate quite a bit. Just so inundating myself in my space with what is going to make me feel good. And then also allowing myself to take risks and make mistakes.
That's great. That's great.
Question.
Yeah, sure.
So we talked about how exhausting it is to be authentic, to be yourself.
We said it should not be authentic. I mean, it should not be exhausting.
I'm sorry. How to not be yourself.
Yes.
But I also find that a lot of times, because we're also in our heads, it's difficult. We're inhibited. We are thinking about what other people are thinking about us. It could be difficult to be yourself. How do you be yourself?
Well, so I am currently in this space. It's so funny you mentioned that. So to be a woman in the wellness space, to be a Black woman, to be a big Black woman in the wellness space, there is a lot, like, I'm constantly in my head, like, I make tea. And so I have a lot of customers that reach out and say, well, do you make skinny tea? Like, I need to lose weight. And I'm always like,
is that a thing? Skinny tea?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, really, all it is it's a diarrhea method. It's like a diuretic. It helps you lose water weight.
Gotcha.
It makes you poop. You haven't lost any fat. Right. But what started to hit me was like, y'all even look at me? Like, wow, if I had skinny tea, wouldn't I be drinking it? And then also, learning to be comfortable with myself, like putting myself out there as a person in the wellness space, and not always looking like a white young yoga teacher, because I don't. And so for me, tell me your question one more time, because I had a connection.
How do you be yourself, considering how we're all self-conscious and in our own minds?
Right. So for me, what's been really powerful is that when I am myself, there are people that reach out and say thank you. So there are people that look like you, or maybe not, that need that example too. Also, if it hurts being myself, I deal with that. I write about it. I meditate. If I go somewhere and I'm like, oh my God, I was myself and I don't think they took it the way I wanted them to, that then becomes a meditation for me around how I took that experience, because perception is everything. Like, I may have perceived you thought this. Who knows if you did? So that's a part of my head. I do carry quite a bit of anxiety following the deaths of my parents. So dealing with that too. So making sure go to therapy. You know, if you're still dealing, you know, struggling with who you are and who you want to be and being authentic, go to therapy and talk to people. Yeah, and just, you know, again, my circle and books. Brene Brown is a good one. She talks quite a bit about her.
You mentioned her several times.
She's good.
Is she the one who talked about sitting in hot yoga? Because I know you.
No, I don't.
What's okay?
I'm about to
she's the one who talked about vulnerability.
Yes, that's her.
Is not weakness.
Yes. So she does a lot of work around vulnerability and shame. Two things that that relate directly to being your authentic self. And then also the piece about authenticity is knowing that this image that you have of yourself, it may not actually be your authentic self. So you may think of yourself as this, and it might actually not be that. So being okay with grappling with you as you develop, and who you were 10 years ago may not be who you're going to be 20 years, you know, from now. Right. So being okay with that. And like, I guess the space that I'm in, which is why that's such a timely question, is, you know, I'm currently grappling with this and transforming into an entrepreneur, which I still struggle with. Even so, on the day, this is funny. So I had been applying for this job that I really wanted. It was a remote job based in Chicago. I would be helping teacher residencies and like really, really powerful equity work. Wanted a job. They flew me out to Chicago. I'm like, I got this in the bag. I'll finally have enough money and I'll push Ajourn up a little bit. But I want to focus on this because this has been my passion for the past 13 years. Get back from Chicago. I'm, you know, waiting to hear back. Finally, in January, I have been interviewing for this position since October. Finally, in January, she calls me and she's like, "Hey, how you doing? You know, I hope you're well. Listen, we really loved you. We decided to go in a different direction." And I was devastated because, like, how dare you? On my day, you flew me out to Chicago for a day trip to interview for a job. It's an hour and a half interview going all the way to Chicago. Like, that was a huge risk. And I just couldn't like, what didn't you see? And that led me to, like, really, what is it about me? Why couldn't you see me in that position? Not 2 hours later, my husband came home with the Essence magazine with my tea featured. And you have to also welcome that stuff too. Like, there are going to be setbacks. That was a setback for us financially. That was a high-paying job. Like, I was going to have some serious income. But I would not have the time to work on my business and to work on myself.
And that's what I was going to say, is that maybe that was the universe's way of removing distractions, obstacles from your way. You think this is the path to that level, but then the magazine just reminded you, no, we don't need you to focus on this. Because this product is meant to be birthed through you. You don't know what it's going to do in the universe, how it's going to have that ripple effect, you know, and you need to stay focused on that. So,
and that goes back to that image that you may have of yourself. I saw myself as this, and I am a powerful educator, and also I am an entrepreneur, and I'm educating through the work that my practice with tea, but also welcoming. I'm not going to lie and say it's been easy. We could have used that extra money, especially now with coronavirus and all this other weird, crazy stuff going on. You know, but I don't regret it. And my stomach doesn't hurt, and I haven't had a migraine in months.
That's great. You know what I realized? So I recently did this thing. I actually left my job. Mac is the only one holding us down. Bless this man.
Bless this man. Same here. I love you, baby.
I know, because I was just like, I can't do it. Baby, you can't make me go back to work. I can't. I can't physically do it. We here. What we gonna do? So, but my point is, we're still here. Like, I left a whole income. When we had the income, like, we were doing pretty well, but we were still wondering, okay, when's the next check coming in? And I haven't had the next check going on a year, and we're good. Which makes you think, what was that all about?
We could have been good 5 years ago.
Like, that's the lesson in that. Like, sometimes you need to just strip away a lot of the extras. You think you need whatever the randomness is. You think you need this. You think you need that. You could actually make do with so little. you don't even and what that does for you then is it frees you up to then do your life's purpose, whatever that is, to then create, to then step into your practice, because all of that are distractions, and heal. Yeah,
like it's funny. Yeah, I'm eating more PB&J and tuna fish, and girl, I got a business.
Right.
So no.
Not even only that, you eating more PB&J, but you are walking in spaces you never thought. Being whatever that Chicago job was never going to elevate you to this thing. So you now realize, Mac and I were talking about the other day, there was an article that I saw where this woman, I'm not going to say her name, but it came through and hit me. And I was just like, no, that's not right. She's spreading not the gospel, but she basically said, keep your day job. Entrepreneurs should keep their day jobs until you can replace your income with your.
You don't have to.
Not even do you not have to. I just don't think that's true. I think it's so draining. You spend way too much time working on things that are just zapping every good thing out of you. And it's not for the good. Yes. It's to service your bills. That's not your job. Get to the mission at hand, which is for you to create what you were meant to birth.
And also trust your hustle. Right? Yes. So when my husband and I decided that I wouldn't apply for another job, right? So that meant a couple of things. One, I need to put some muscle behind Adjourn and make sure that, so I'm stocked. I have 2 stockists, a store in Philadelphia and one in Georgetown, right? I have 2 other folk that are interested in Richmond. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, so I have a couple other folk interested there. And so I am putting muscle behind those opportunities. I also have a part-time job. So maybe you're giving up your full-time job to do something else so you have more space, because we still have to eat, right? So I work with a consulting firm in Baltimore with a woman who actually has a Black woman. It's called the Women Entrepreneurs Leadership Lab. And we come together once a month to help each other with our businesses and whatever. It's a beautiful program.
Oh, that's great.
So she also does education work and work with nonprofits. So I consult a bit on the side. And I still facilitate every now and again. So I'm using those little bursts of things that I know I'm really good at to make sure our bills are paid. But being at home full time has allowed me to see Adjourn through.
Right.
So right now it's a little, in a few months, in a few years, who knows? Who knows?
Right. And that's part of the problem. You can't, we talked about how you can't get something for nothing.
Yeah.
That's what you're paying.
Yes.
That is what you are exchanging for that next level.
Yep.
You can't just ease into the next level. And you got to work for it.
If you're working full time, this was my situation. I've always been creative, but I'm teaching from 7 to 7. I get home. What do? I'm exhausted. Then I either get up in the morning, go to work in a school system that does excellent work, but there are some pieces that they weren't aligning with me. So not only am I doing a job that is very tiring and requires a lot of energy, I'm also in a space in a district where I don't always feel so aligned as a person that is a lover, that does care about youth for real, right? Who does care about the community. And so I'm exhausted. I don't have energy for me. I don't have the energy to even do some of the things that I love to do, like painting and sewing. So,
and how could you create and bring forth when you have no more energy to do that? So that's great. So you've had a lot of amazing moments with Adjourn, and just think, it's only, 9 months in?
Yeah, it hasn't even been a year.
That's crazy.
Wow, wild, right?
That is crazy. So as you think about the next year, like because at this point you got to start what are the wildest dreams that you're even scared to mention?
Well, one, so I realized I had the opportunity to open up a tea bar in Georgetown, and I turned it down. So I would say another thing is to be okay with turning some. Say no to the things that don't make you feel
tell us about
good.
that. What happened?
Yeah, so the woman who was the GM of the store that stocks my tea in Georgetown, the Tavern, beautiful, beautiful woman. So she's managing a different space, and it's going to be like a Union Kitchen-esque type of space, like a market. And they needed a tea. They wanted her and I have a tight relationship. So she's like, I want you to do this. when I hung up the phone, I felt like I had to throw up.
Oh, yeah,
like,
that's not it.
I was just like,
That's not it.
Oh God, like what? The idea of me driving, I live in Bowie, so the idea of me driving from Bowie to Georgetown every day to make tea for people who may not even give a damn about my tea. I couldn't see that as my day to day. But I said to myself, if I don't take this opportunity, then what? So that led me to have this dream. So what I do see for myself is becoming a vendor for spas, for hotels, for corporate wellness is a big thing nowadays. I want big businesses to stock my tea. I also want to be able to create and curate spaces, not necessarily have a tea shop, but have a space where I can invite people in for workshops and seminars and tea parties. And so that's a big dream of mine now. And then also spaces so the thing about mess hall that was cool was it was a nice space. You had access to a huge kitchen, to storage, to resources, to vendors. But $800 a month? I mean, and Kickstarter helped me get started there, but it was really it was impacting my business to maintain that. And so I would love to be in a space where I can help young entrepreneurs who are, I don't want to be the coach. We have Bola. We have Mac. We have people that can do the coaching. I just want to have space where people can come to do that type of stuff, where you're not breaking your bank because you need to be able to put your resources elsewhere. So those are my big dreams. But I see building out some type of, manufacturing situation where I'm able to have my tea in a bunch of different spaces.
Yeah, that's great. Baltimore is a really good space for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I know, there are lots of buildings and spaces you could easily take over and convert into something
and
amazing.
The community is different.
Yeah.
Like DC, I think the community in DC really rests on your connections. If you don't know, then it's hard for you to get in. And then also being able to maintain whatever you. So Mess Hall was cool to begin with. They helped me connect to a lot of different people, but I could not keep that 800 because that was coming off the top of my money. But I did find commercial kitchens where I can pay $200 or $300 a month. And then I reached out to a couple people that was like, look, I just want to come in one afternoon on a Sunday. Can I pay you $100 to do that? Because I can sit and blend tea for 2 hours and have tea, a lot of tea. I don't need to have a full contract. So really reaching out to people and telling people what I need to see for it.
Does Bowie have, because I know Montgomery County has some kitchen spaces.
There's some people,
okay. So
people.
You have folks you're working with.
But still, just saying what you need. And so my big dream is to connect. Like I did a big event a couple weeks ago at a technology company down in Georgetown. And they pay off the top.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a market, but they pay off the top. They buy everything.
Gotcha.
And all you do is come set it up. And then the people that work there take it. Well, that's what Google does. That's what Amazon, these big businesses are doing that for their employees. So
that's a great point. You could even sell on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
We have multiple places. Right now, I choose to just do it via my website because Amazon does take some off the top.
Okay, do that.
So I sell through my own website. But
Wow. Well, that's great.
Thank you.
I think you're such an inspiration in so many ways. Number one, part of the reason I was telling Mac that the Kobe death hit so hard. It's just so much. There's so many reasons. But for me, as a mom, married, so you have two parts of you that are all of a sudden just gone.
Oh gosh.
I can't even.
It's devastating.
I can't fathom that. And suddenly. So for me, like when that happened, it just hit me to the point where I couldn't even wrap my mind around it. It was exhausting to even try to think about it. So that was the extreme. But I was telling him what I took away. So for the memorial, Vanessa gave a speech, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's so good." So I listened to it, and what I took away from it wasn't even what she said, which, it was beautiful, and it was a great way to honor her husband and daughter. But what I took away from it was just strength personified.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like, Oh, because sometimes it's hard for you to imagine what we're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
Same as it's hard to see us being the Beyoncés. You also don't even know how to come out of grief if the impossible or whatever were to happen. You have no idea how you're gonna get out of bed. And for me, honestly, I was like, I have no, like, if Vanessa can get up in front of all that crowd and remain composed and inspired, there's no reason why I'm not gonna be chasing my business. You could do whatever, because there are two opposite sides of, there's one where there's success and everything, and then people can come out of the most devastating situation and still remain on their feet.
Absolutely.
And I think you're an amazing testament of that too.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just beautiful to see that, because I can't imagine not having, let me tell you, my backup plan, I tell Mac all the time, is Julius and Eunice and my parents. If everything else goes to shit, we moving home.
Yes.
But to not even have that as an option, talk less of being able to call your mom.
Oh, gosh.
The wisdom. Oh my God. Like, that is.
And I should say, like, my mom was my homegirl. So she wasn't just my mother. Like, she was my homegirl. But I think what I took from her and from my father and from the whole situation was that, like, I'm here. It's been 6 years.
Wow.
It's been 6 years.
And you're doing and thriving.
Actually, last Friday was 6 years since my mother passed. I'm still here.
Wow.
And so each time I go back through my years, around New Year's, I'm like, okay, what did I accomplish? What didn't I accomplish? How do I feel? Who am I? I realize how, like, I can make it. You can make it. Like, y'all can do this.
You can do it.
You just have to start.
So part of the reason why I'm less afraid of death is because I think a lot of us, death is like that thing that we don't want to think about.
We don't want to deal with.
No, but I think it's important to have that, to constantly think about it, because you got to remind yourself how precious time is and how little time you've got. So you might as well go about your business, what you were called to do. But when my friend passed away like 5 years ago, she had 3 kids, all under the age of 5.
Oh my gosh.
I think it was like 5, 4, 3.
Oh.
And when we talk about, you talk about having amazing women in your lives, she is one that everybody, like, she's that person for them. You know what I mean? Like, she, so for me, it was just like, there are certain people that you're just like, no, you're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be rocking with all these, like, this community that you've created. But at the same, you've created this massive community, but at the same time, you could be so connected and so giving on an individual basis. But I say all that to say, when she passed away, I mean, the thing that I just kept thinking is, these children, how will they, number one, you are never going to know how amazing, your mom was. I mean, as great as your life will be and everything, but just to understand just how amazing, like, beauty personified, you would never truly have a good understanding of that.
I absolutely empathize with that. And here's the thing, what I realized is that, like, my mother is one of my mothers. My girlfriends are also my mothers. You are my mother. Like, we mother each other in just how we care, how we show love. That's why it's important to cultivate a space, a strong space of people to support you. But we mother each other. And also, I have everything I need.
And, but that's what I took away, though, is to look at those children and I'm like,
they got it.
They're good. So if anything happens to me, I mean, God forbid, but I'm like, they'll be all right.
They're good.
They're good.
And this is so funny. So I was a 5th grade teacher when my mother passed. And my kids went through the whole process with me. My mother lives in Richmond, so I was driving down every Friday to Monday, taking, because she was like, my mother also was like a Spitfire. She's like, I'm not coming up there. And so it was a lot. And I would come back and wonder, like, how are my students going to engage with me? Like, what is this going to be? And then I just decided to tell them what was going on. We had a very open, transparent, honest conversation about what I'm going through and the fact that adults do go through things. This is something that we have to deal with. And my kids, they stood up. I mean, I didn't have to worry about cleaning the classroom. I didn't have to fuss about homework. I didn't have to fuss about assignments. They took care of themselves. Children are resilient. You are resilient. And in that, when I got back after my mother finally did transition from hospice, I had a letter on my desk, and there was a little girl, super quiet. I'll never forget her, in my class, who had lost her mother to MS when she was like kindergarten or first grade. And she wrote me this 2-page letter, just consoling me.
How old?
She was 10. And just like telling me that I'm going to be okay. And I was just like, you know what? I'm okay. This is not going to be easy.
No.
But I know that this little girl was 6. I remember when her mom passed away. I didn't make the connection. But she was 6, and she's here.
Yeah.
And I'm
here.
To
learn that lesson so young for her, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
And,
that's actually,
and to share it.
To share, yeah.
But that's why it's important for us as adults to communicate, to be transparent. When we talk about authenticity, like I am this way with children too. I need to be myself. And just at that moment, I didn't have the energy to fake. That was also around the time I met my now husband. And I remember telling him, was like, look, my mama is sick. So either you get with it or you got to go. And he's not fazed by me at all. He's like, whatever, I'm here, I got this.
Wow.
And so between him and this little girl, my students, like those were lessons in you can do it.
Wow.
You have.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So having that, I mean, there's no reason why anyone should let fear stand in their way.
Do it anyway.
Someday is today.
Do it nervous.
Yeah.
You stutter in the microphone. Do it anyway.
I mean,
you make a mistake. Someone doesn't like your product. Okay, make it better.
Yeah. You still here. Yeah. You still breathing.
You think everyone loves Beyonce?
Well, I do.
I mean, I do too.
Who could not love? Well, I know.
What's that dude? The Kid Rock.
Yeah,
Kid Rock don't love Beyonce. He's a hater.
Apparently not.
Who was he?
And she still is a billionaire with a billionaire husband. And it doesn't
thriving
matter.
out in these streets. Yeah. But honestly, you've definitely blessed me.
Y'all,
I think
beautiful.
I mean,
yes. How divine.
Right.
I don't know if you talked about how we met. Like we just met.
We really just met. I was just telling Mike, I was like, you know what? I'm huge into energy.
Me too.
Yes.
Me too.
If I feel the energy, like my word for this year, like we pick words every year, is obedience. So if there's something about someone or something about an opportunity, whatever it is, and
trust in my energy.
Trust it.
Trust
that, and that's
if it feels good, do it. Good.
Yes. And that's exactly what it is. It's your soul is never going to steer you astray. You know what I mean? Like it's your mind that's
like your mind will.
Your mind will. But if you are able to tap into that space where you start to listen to that more and more, it'll guide you into places you couldn't even dream of. And I think this is another amazing. Imagine the 2 people that I literally stalk on. I can show you the Instagram that I sent to Renee and
Christine, the Afro Minimalist,
which probably, but so just to think, I'm like one whatever connection away from that. But the point is,
we all
just never know.
You never know. I didn't know I was going to meet you on Wednesday. I went there for my consulting work. I didn't even know what I was doing there. I didn't know what they were talking about. We were all sitting there like, what are we?
I was on my phone the whole time, like, you know what, we gotta.
But I went. Because
there was a divine purpose.
And
that's
Trina,
what it is.
who was the executive director of the Maryland Black
Chamber of Commerce.
Like, what?
Yes. That's actually how we've been connected with her and how we ended up at the nonprofit village, which is where our office is now, is through Gina. Just a random connection. I mean, it's
random.
Energy, paying attention to your soul is, I mean, that if you're looking for, what is it, the roadmap, that's it.
Yep, that's it.
Just pay attention.
And and it's funny when people talk about, well, what's your plan? To follow my energy.
Yeah, that's it.
To trust, make connections with people, and then the people connections that work, I follow. If they don't, bye. Keep it moving.
Don't overthink it.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I love it. So
me too.
Thank you so much
for
coming. This was amazing. I hope you enjoyed it, but you definitely blessed it in so many ways. And I think our limited listeners are going to be blessed. But I think
I love all of y'all.
oh, we love you. Remember to subscribe, like, share, and
Yes.
whatever other people say. But this has been amazing. Thank you so much. And Mac, you want to take us out?
Yes, it was really wonderful having LaTonia here today. Really inspired, and we want to remind you all to live your life like it's a fucking vacation.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Yes. You ain't got no time but the present.
Dope.
Well, thank you.